Spring has sprung. Are your dog's skills well tuned? That's exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome back to the McCann Dogs Podcast. Wherever you happen to be in the world, maybe it was really cold this weekend, but for the first time in a while, we had some very, very warm days over the weekend. We just finished a long weekend.
Actually, it was one of the nicest long weekends we've had.
It was lovely.
Like May 24th weekends in a while.
It's like summer fast forwarded.
Right. Yes.
Maybe this is all due to climate change, or maybe this is just where we're at with the cycle this year or whatever the case may be. But it's like we totally skipped spring. Like I am still thinking that there's no possibility of snow now at this point in our area of Ontario, but it's still May.
Right.
And we've had lots of times where May, early June, we're still getting snow. So having, 35-ish with the humidity temperatures this weekend was quite an adjustment.
Yes, it was.
But it also made me think, it's time to do another podcast to talk about what happens in spring and how we can make sure our dog training does not derail in the springtime.
Exactly. Yes. Because our dogs are like us. You go out in the spring and you smell the fresh cut grass.
Oh
and
my gosh.
It's like,
I did so many puppy burns this weekend. I did so many zoomies. Right. Oh my gosh. Grass. No, seriously. I did because I have a puppy, but not because of spring.
I went from wearing like a hoodie to suddenly putting shorts on.
Yeah.
Like there was no just walking around in jeans and a t-shirt.
No.
I went from hoodie to shorts.
Yeah. From the hood to the shorts.
Right.
I did the same thing. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this feeling? There's sweat on the back of my neck. What's happening here?
You have a sunburn.
I do. Yeah. I do. I got sunburn out working with the pup and playing with the, playing on the property and keeping up the property. There's lots to do, lots of whippersnipping and lots of lawn mowing, but I love it. I love being outside. So, So in terms of the sudden change of temperature as well, like, I don't know about you, but my tolerance is not built up yet.
Right. Yeah. Same as me. Yeah.
Yeah. I was hot. Like I really felt warm. I felt like I was kind of dragging a little bit through the weekend. I had to keep really energizing. I
had to drink more water.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I went through a lot of water trying to like get that energized feeling again. Right. So.
And I'm sure our dogs do too.
Yes.
It's a sudden transition for them.
Without question. And depending on their heat tolerance to begin with, it may be a really sudden change for them. Like Ned has never had good heat tolerance. Never. He has always been a very slow adjuster for our temperatures in Ontario, especially. We don't have that adjustment period that we get to give them. And you can see it in him. He'll be a bit flat. I did brush a ton of undercoat out of him this weekend. So he's going to feel better at this point as well. It just keeps coming out because of course he's swimming a lot and he's blowing a lot of coat. So there's just tons to come out and he'll have his lighter coat soon.
Do you leave the fur you brush out for the birds to make their nests?
I used to, but now I've heard that it's not good when they're on preventatives for ticks, which of course in Ontario right now, we are not existing without preventatives for ticks.
Yes.
I'm religiously on a tick prevention product, even though I've tried really hard to avoid them for all the years that I've had dogs. At this stage of the game, there's no winning. There's no winning, and it's just too dangerous not to go with the preventatives. So I was fine with natural stuff for a lot of years. And then when the ticks started increasing, the natural stuff stopped really working for me in my scenario. So now I have to go with a chemical preventative, and it does do the trick, which is great. It keeps the ticks off the dog, and the ones that I do find on him are dead. The downfall, of course, is that the ticks often will crawl off of his coat, and then I find them around the house or sometimes on me, which is no fun.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean, this is our new reality, is having these ticks. So, but yeah, I mean, his adjustment period takes a while. And as you know, I have a pup right now.
Yep, brand new puppy.
Yep. And he turns 10 weeks tomorrow. So we're recording this at the point where he'll be 10 weeks tomorrow. And I notice him right away. He's got that open mouth sort of like chaotic looking puppy pant going on. So
like, what is this heat?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, he's great. He'll follow me out around, and then we'll find a shady tree and we'll work under that tree. But I'm very mindful right now that I'm not overdoing it with running and stuff outside. I like to do a ton of like restrained recalls with my puppies right from the get-go to make sure they learn that running after me, chasing me is a really wonderful thing, because of course that feeds into their recall down the road. So right now I'm being very careful about doing those outside because I don't want to overheat him, of course.
Right,
so how's Honda doing with it?
Well, Honda will be 15 in July, so he's very experienced. So he walks out inside and went, "Hey, it's summertime. Great." So he went and laid in the sun for a little bit, and then you saw him move to the shade, and then he decided to go inside. And so he's, I'm going to really watch him, though, this year, because with his advanced age, I don't want him to overdo it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He also is a single-coated breed, too. So the double-coated breeds, they have all that insulation, all that undercoat acts as insulation, whereas he doesn't have that. So he feels the heat on his skin like we would. So, I definitely keep an eye on him and help him make his decisions. If he was laying out in the sun and I felt it was too long, I would move him in too, because, you know, sometimes like me, I'll lay out in the sun too long and I need someone to tell me, "Go in, Christine, you're getting too hot."
Yeah, exactly. I was out in the sun too long this weekend and now I'm red for it, but that's the way it goes. So are there signs that you're looking for, or do you just walk up and touch him?
I watch for excessive panting.
Okay.
So, you know, a little bit of panting is fine. But if I see him and he's really panting, it's like, okay, that's too much. So the moment he starts panting is the moment I start to watch him. It's like, okay, he's panting. Let me make sure this doesn't get out of hand. Yeah. I'll walk up and touch. And if he's hot to touch, then, you know, he should get back into that shade. So, you know, common sense.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Also, too, if I was at a beach or walking on hot asphalt, you know, we know those surfaces heat up.
Oh, they do.
So if I don't feel comfortable walking in bare feet somewhere, then I don't expect my dog to walk on that surface in bare feet as well.
Yeah, and if you're not eager to whip your shoes off wherever you happen to be, whip your shoes and socks off and walk around barefoot on the concrete or the asphalt, just touch it with the back of your hand. You know, the front of our hands are very tolerant. Right. We have all this protection on our hands. The back of our hands are much more sensitive, or your wrist, right? That's why they test baby water or baby milk when it's just come out of the microwave or out of the boiling water on your wrist, so you can tell if it's too hot from there, because if you put it on your hand, you're probably not going to be able to tell quite as honestly, whereas your wrist will tell the tale or the back of your hand will tell the tale. So I will actually do that if I'm headed out with my dogs for any type of walk through the summer. I just double check first. And then if the concrete's too hot, I make sure that we're on grass instead of on concrete, because I do love to be outside. So you mentioned excessive panting, which I think is a really important note. So panting in and of itself is not a panic. That's how dogs will cool themselves, right? They don't sweat like humans do. They sweat a little bit through their feet, but they mostly cool themselves by panting, bringing in cool air and expelling that hot air. So don't panic if your dog is panting. That's a very normal function. But if they are panting excessively, if their color looks different than it normally does, if they're really red and pink, if their tongue is curled, that is something that you want to pay attention to and make an adjustment as well. So definitely things to watch out for, and especially before they've built tolerance. Right. Yes. Like it really is at this stage of the game. It's a sudden change in our area, and the dogs feel it just as much.
Like we went on a few walks this week and this weekend, and I did them early in the morning or in the evening, and they were shorter even then than normal. I didn't take him out in the heat of the day. He's just not adjusted to that yet, and he's almost 15. So.
Absolutely.
So we kept them short.
Amazing. In the middle of the day, it was amazing how hot it was already. Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of the other things I wanted to talk about surrounding spring was just making sure that your training doesn't fall apart. Right. You know, we often talk about the changing of the seasons being something very drastic with our dogs. And it's so true. All of a sudden, the world smells different. Like, I can smell that the world smells different in spring. So there's no question. What they smell, no question. Absolutely. So how do we make sure that all of our great dog training skills stay well oiled and we don't fall into this abyss where now our dogs have discovered it's spring, so now they're not listening to us anymore. So let's talk a little bit about this. Do you have rituals that you rely on in the spring?
In the spring, I do like to give my dogs a tune-up.
Okay.
So dogs are like cars.
Yeah.
They need to be tuned up. They
Love
need
it.
to keep refreshed. It's like when I was in high school, I was fabulous at chemistry, but you know what? I haven't retained that.
Oh my gosh.
Put that in front of me now,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, I have no clue. I knew it at one point, but I don't anymore.
I know. I used to have that periodic table memorized and everything.
Right,
I wouldn't
yeah.
be able to tell you the first thing today.
Right. Yes. And our dogs are the same.
Yeah.
Just because you taught them a recall 3 years ago doesn't mean that they're at the same level that they were 3 years
Yeah.
ago. So dogs are just like humans. We all need tune-ups.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the start of this is taking an honest assessment.
Yes.
And it's a struggle because we are so emotionally invested in our dogs that we don't ever want to think anything negatively about them. And take that whole piece out of the equation for yourself because it doesn't help. It basically sets you up to just feel like you either need to protect them or you need to feel guilty for them. You know, what we want to do is look at them critically so that we can make them the best possible dog they can be and we can give them the best possible information that we can give them.
Right.
So like you said, we can't expect our dogs to retain information from the puppy training that they had, right? Like I have a puppy right now. He's in constant training mode at this moment because he's just learning everything. He's a brand new little puppy and he's like a sponge. But there's no way that this information is going to continue to be retained for the rest of his life if I don't take specific measures to make sure that it stays in place.
Right.
So right now I'm doing all the teaching, right? I'm showing him all the things that he needs to do. And I'm doing the work with repetition after repetition after repetition. He's been home a week. So far, I've not said hardly any verbals to him at all. I mean, I praise him. I say, oh my gosh, you're the best puppy ever. And we play and I praise him. And, you know, he's learning that my voice is very wonderful. But I don't expect him to know his name. I don't expect him to know how to sit. I don't expect him to know how to down or stand or be calm while I'm handling him.
Or to come when called.
Or to come when called. These are all things I'm working on teaching him right now.
Yes. And people often do. They bring home a puppy and they expect the puppy to understand English and to know what these words mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
Yes.
think about kids in the same way, right? We teach and we drill things, right? We teach them mathematics and they sit down and they do 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. Like we think about typing, learning to type, right? ASDF, ASDF. We need that repetition to develop understanding, to develop muscle memory, etc. And that's what I'm doing with this puppy right now, right? At this point, he has spent the week learning how to learn, basically. He spent the week learning how to follow food so that now he'll move into those positions, right? He doesn't know the positions yet, so I haven't used any verbals with them, but he is brilliant now at following. I do the slightest movement of my hand with a piece of food in it and he can sit, he can lie down, he can roll over, he can give me a paw, all of these things with lure, with guide, but he's basically learning how to respond to this lure. So I am not a step skipper. I like to be really thorough with my training. So I have spent gobs of time now. And pretty much every time he's out of his crate and we're doing anything, which usually, you know, it usually includes a meal. So it's usually like breakfast, lunch, and dinner sort of thing. And he comes out and we play games and then we work on our skills. So each session that he's come out, he's gotten used to following food into the sit, for example. So now he's really proficient at that.
Isn't it wonderful how dogs, they're a completely different species.
Absolutely.
And yet they're so willing to learn and evolve with us as different species too.
It's what makes them magic.
Right.
It really is.
Like, you know, there's so many other animals that could never, you know, or if you had like a snake, the snake's not going to learn how, well, eventually they learn how to sit in that, but not the same as a dog.
Can a snake sit?
I don't know if a snake can sit.
Okay. I really need to know if there is a distinction for a snake sitting.
Right. I think when they're reared up,
do they have a butt?
When they're reared up, I don't know. They must have a butt.
That's like a strike.
Right.
It would be backwards. Anyways, their butt would be in the front if that's a sit.
Yeah.
Oh, someone's got to tell us.
Yes.
Someone's got to tell us. If you know about snakes, tell us. What are their range of behaviors and skills? Can they give a high five? So basically, I am taking the time it takes to teach this puppy what he needs to know. And a lot of the times people focus on that end game so quickly that they shoot themselves in the foot because puppies he needed all those repetitions, you know, like he was doing it after the first couple of days. He was following the food and he was following it into the down, and it was slow going and whatnot. Now I move my hand slightly down. Boom, he hits the deck. I move my hand slightly over to his shoulder. Boom, he's rolling over. Like, he has gone from, okay, I think I can do this, to, yep, I know exactly what you're looking for. I know it. Here it is. Here it is. Give me my cookie. Like, let's do it.
Yes.
And my next steps now that he has that solid foundation, now I'm going to start to make the food less part of the picture. So now I'll be asking him to follow a signal, and I'm still going to reward him. That's the thing that people will often miss out on, is they go from having food in their hand to not having food in their hand, and they expect the same behavior from the pup. Right. I need to convince him it's still worth his while to do the thing, even if he doesn't see the food. So that's my next step. Now I'm going to be going to a signal that almost looks identical, just with the food removed. When I ask him to sit, it's going to be that exact same gesture with my hand. And as soon as he gets it, I'm going to mark yes. And then food's going to come from elsewhere into my signal hand to reward my pup at that point. I'm still not going to use verbals. I have another week planned where I'm not using any verbals at all. I'm going to this next step. Once he's proficient in that, then I'm going to add the verbals in. And this is going to build a good, solid foundation. And when I take an honest assessment of those skills, I will be confident that he will now be able to go into other environments and, with a little bit of help, get the same sort of results. So we talk about the white room a lot.
Yes.
And I love the white room for getting started. And people misunderstand the white room in that they think their dog's skills need to be perfected and completed before they leave the white room. And the white room, for anybody who's new to us, the white room is basically just a boring room. It's something where you don't have to compete with any other motivators. There's no squirrels. There's no grass to sniff. There's no pine cones to grab and try to play with. There's nothing but you and your lessons for the puppy. It's sort of like the classroom.
Right. Yes.
You know, we don't send our kids to Canada's Wonderland and say, okay, do your math drills.
Right. Yeah.
We put them in a classroom where it's set up for optimal learning, and we let them learn in that scenario.
Yes.
So
that's how I did my puppy testing with the Saluki litter.
Okay.
I set up, it was 2X pens. So I went into a great big circle and they plunked a puppy down there with me, and there was nothing else, just me and the puppy. So the puppy, you know, said, well, there's nothing else in this room but you. So, and I could really see what the puppy was like. Whereas with the first time I got them out, we were in the kitchen and they were into the shoes and they were running under the kitchen table and playing with each other. And so
life is really interesting when you're a puppy. Everything's really interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So the white room just allows you to set the lessons. But now, like, basically after 1 or 2 sessions in the white room, I was outside in my yard and I was doing the same things.
Right,
You know, I'm not expecting finished product in the yard. I'm still helping him. I've got the food. I'm showing him right there. But basically he's learning that this means the same here as it does over there, as it does over there. You know, we went into town a few times on the weekend just to have some social opportunities. Nice to have a long weekend, that's for sure. And I go in early before things really open up. So there's a little bit of traffic, but not a ton of traffic.
You're kind of in a tourist area.
I am.
Yes.
Yes.
And with the Grand River.
Yeah, it was quite busy midway through the day there with all the people going and opening their cottages and then coming into town for food and whatnot. It was definitely different than what I've gotten used to, which is why I went early in the morning. So it was early enough that, like, Sobeys was open. So I was there in the Sobeys and Canadian Tire parking lot. If anybody knows the Dunnville area, I was there, and there was enough foot traffic going in and out of Sobeys that lots of people were like, oh, puppy. But then he also got to sniff around. There was a big hose reel, and there was fire hydrants, and there was, you know, the sliding doors, right? We walked in front of the sliding doors and they opened, and he stopped and he looked sideways at them like, what on earth is that? So I thought, great, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. We did it 3 or 4 times. He got cookies every time it happened. And then he was like, yeah, great. Sliding doors happen. Like, life happens. This is great.
He's going to expect all doors now slide open for him.
Yeah, I wish. Oh my gosh, man. With a puppy under one arm and having to pull these big patio doors, I kind of would like some sliding doors at my house. But that's good socialization. That really is.
Yes. The raccoons will figure it out, though.
Yes.
Yes. If you could sliding, the raccoons would say, let's go in Shannon's fridge.
That's the problem. Well, and Ned would make short work of them. Oh, doors open, doors closed, doors open, doors closed.
Yep.
You would
Come
just
on
have
in.
fun all
Come
day
on in,
long.
bugs.
Yeah. That's exactly it. All the mosquitoes nonstop. So, yeah, I mean, we want to build these skills and move through different locations to build these skills, spring is a great opportunity to think about sharpening up skills because there's so much variety. And you can start with the same thing. You know, if you know that you've let your recall slide, for example, because you've been on leash all winter and, you know, maybe you're a summer or spring warrior and you don't spend as much time outside through the winter. Well, don't just go out and cross your fingers.
Right.
Like, put in the time.
Yes.
Remind your dog what the recall means in the house so that you can get a few perfect repetitions in the house. And then once you're thinking like, oh, you know what? I'm well on my way with this step, whatever this step may be. Now you're going to take it out of the white room and do it a few times successfully outside of the white room. And then think about finding another area and another area.
Yes.
What you want to do is gradually increase the distraction, right? So whether it's a pup you're working with or whether it's a young dog that needs some reminders for spring, if you just go out there in the real world and they're overfaced right off the bat, it's probably going to be a challenge for you both. Whereas if you ease yourselves into it, it's going to be a much nicer time of getting back on track. So if you're working on things like focus, things like response to name, things like anything that basically asks your dog to give you their attention, what are some of the things that you want to do in terms of prepping for getting out into that environment?
For getting into the new environment?
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure they're solid in my home environment.
Right.
So I'm going to make sure they're very solid.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move out to the new environments. And I'm going to like say, okay, you know what? We're going to do some training in this new environment. So say I want to take my dog to the beach. So I'm going to make sure I take everything I might need. I'm going to have my...
What are those things? That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Okay, yes.
What are those things that you might need?
So things I have in my dog training bag are, I might have my gentle leader.
Okay.
Maybe
that's a good one.
Maybe I'm going to need that over top of just my regular collar.
Yeah. And a gentle leader, for anybody that doesn't know, a gentle leader is a head halter, and it basically will calm a really excited dog, or it will give you more power as a handler. We've got lots of videos and even a podcast actually that we did on the gentle leader specifically. So by all means, check those out and then come back here to listen to the rest of this spring tune-up podcast.
I'm going to have my different treats. I'm going to have high value treats. I'm going to have kibble. I'm going to have, kind of some...
Okay, wait a second. Let's talk about, so that to me sounded contradictory.
Okay,
so I'm going to have high value treats and I'm going to have kibble.
Right.
So for me, and like this is all individual, of course. For me, kibble is a fairly low value reward.
Right. Yes.
What do you consider high value?
A high value treats would be maybe some meat I've kept from supper last night.
Just random meat from the street.
So I might have cut up some chicken I had left over, or a little bit of roast. Maybe I have some dehydrated liver. Something that is out of the ordinary is the high value treat, and it usually has a good strong smell to it too. Because dogs' sense of smell is way better than their sense of taste.
It is.
I'm going to have it all diced up and ready to go. I might even have various sizes too. I might have a chunk of cheese that my dog can nibble off of.
Okay.
And also have some tiny little pieces that I can give that they can swallow quickly.
Perfect. So yeah, I love to have really good rewards for my dog. The last thing I want to do is get a spectacular anything from him and then have the reward be like, here you go.
Right.
Yes. If I'm out in the real world, I'm very aware. And again, this is being able to critically look at your dog and their skills and assess so that you can make things better. It's not about saying, oh, that dog can't listen in the real world. It's about figuring out how to make them listen.
Right. Yes.
World, right.
Yes.
So out there in the real world, I would bring along chicken, cheese. I would bring along something that is really tempting and tantalizing. I do use a lot of kibble for training. Right. Oh, so much, because there's so much training to do. But I tend to keep that for in the house. And right now I'm still using a bit of kibble out in my immediate yard and whatnot. Right. But when I'm working on the luring skills, when I'm working on his response to name, when I'm working on chase games, I make sure that I bring a toy and I make sure that I bring high value treats for him. And so far what he's had is chicken breast and tiny little bits of cheese. I've been introducing cheese on a very, very slow level just because I don't want to have any puppy diarrhea.
Yeah, you can get lactose-free cheese now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually, because I am lactose intolerant. Okay. I don't know if that's too much information, but I've been buying...
you should build tolerance for lactose. No, I'm just kidding.
I've been buying the lactose-free cheese, and I'm quite pleased with it. Tastes the same, I think.
Yeah. And is it easier on the dogs too?
I don't know. I don't know. But you know what? I drink lactose-free milk, and in the morning when I eat my cereal, I always let Honda drink the last little bit of milk, and I've always used lactose-free milk, and I don't see any issues with him. So good. Maybe it does. Maybe it is the lactose for dogs.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. I thought it was just the richness of it, but maybe that is the lactose that's...
I have no idea.
At any rate.
Toys. A variety of toys.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. What's Honda's favorite toy?
Honda really liked little squeaky toys. So he would love for me to throw the tiniest little toy I could find that had a squeaker in it. And then he loves to, pick them up and retrieve them. But as he's retrieving it, he likes to be going squeak, 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 squeak.
So fun.
The whole way back.
So fun for you too.
Right, yes. So that is his ultimate favorite.
Yeah.
He likes tug, but he loves to squeak a toy.
Okay.
Yes, and it's funny, now that he's deaf, he can't hear his toys squeak, but he still squeaks them. So when he's retrieving his toys, I still hear squeak, 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 squeak. So he's still in that same, I like to squeak the toy.
I'm going to annoy Christine with my squeaking. Oh, that's hilarious.
But yeah, he loves a squeaker toy.
Excellent. Yeah, so something your dog loves.
What have you found Levon so far?
So far, he likes pretty much everything. Right? It's so funny. This is hilarious, as this is going to be a hilarious story. I have taught, this is my third puppy that I'm teaching to retrieve using a really old pair of Crocs. Which is so funny.
Is it the same pair?
It's the exact same pair. Yeah, that's what makes it funny. So Reggie, when he was a puppy, it just happened to be the thing that was right there, and I got him chasing it, and then little tosses, and he started bringing it back. I think they're a nice texture for the dogs. They're sort of like a holy roller texture, but even more gentle.
Right.
I make it very short lived because obviously I don't want to create a fascination with my shoe. With my shoes with puppies and dogs. But I started with Reggie, and then Ned came along, and I have pictures of Ned with this exact pair of Crocs. Yeah. And now they're out again with the baby.
Wow. I'm impressed that you've kept them. Do you wear them ever?
I do.
Oh, you still wear those.
They're my yard poop picking up Crocs.
Yes.
So basically that's their only function, and to teach retrieving.
Right.
And I don't pick up the poop with the Crocs. I just walk around the yard with the Crocs.
You stomp on it, it sticks to the bottom.
There's not Crocs full of poop. But yeah, this is how I've started now. 3 tollers I've started retrieve training using this old pair of Crocs.
I think you should patent that.
Isn't that so funny? I was thinking Crocs should make a dog toy because the material itself, right? Especially with the old one, it's just so worn in and it's so soft.
You need to send Crocs an email and say, you guys need to come up with a dog line.
So he loves the Croc. And we'll definitely make sure that we work through that he doesn't get to chew the Croc. He never gets to chew it. He just gets to chase it.
I can see he gets loose one day at the mall, and he's chasing all the women and men in their Crocs.
In the Croc store. Oh my gosh, I'll owe $1 million. Yeah. So he also has, I bought him an octopus as his first toy. It's got 8 tentacles. It's very soft. It's one of the Skinnies toys that has nothing in it. So it's perfect.
So I'm guessing it's not a real octopus. It's a plush octopus.
I thought it was. It's actually green too, and I don't know that it's.
I don't know if they come in green,
vibrant green. Right. But octopuses are cool. If you've not seen the movie My Octopus Teacher, I highly, highly recommend it. I've watched it many times, and it gets me every time. It amazes me how many wonderful things octopuses do that octopi, and I had no idea until I watched this. It's like a documentary, but it's like a really warm, fuzzy documentary. You will love it. Whoever ever watches it will love it. I watched it on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's on there at all yet, but it's not that kind of octopus at any rate. I digress. Okay. It was just like a vibrant green Skinnies octopus. It's got a little squeaker in the top, but it's got 8 tentacles, of course. So he gets to chase all of the tentacles, and I can grab easily wherever I want, give it a little yank. And then of course that excites him and makes him want to bring it back to me more and get involved with the tug again more. This is actually the first toller that I have ever had that has tugged right from the get-go. Every single other one of my tollers, I've had to work really hard to get them to tug because they're traditionally fairly soft-mouthed. Yes. And this guy is anything but soft-mouthed. Oh my goodness, he's ready.
Did your other puppies, did they tug in the litter with litter mates, or was it just something the litter didn't really?
That's a good question. So this puppy I've gotten to know so well. I stalked him the first 2 weeks he was in the breeder's bedroom, so I didn't get to stalk him then. But at 2 weeks on, that would have been awkward. At 2 weeks on, they got moved to the kitchen. Their eyes started opening, and she put the webcam on them.
Yes.
So for 6 weeks, I got to watch them on the webcam, and I watched so many fascinating behaviors. It's a time period that I traditionally don't get to see much of. So that's a really good question. I'm not sure if they tugged a lot in the litter or not. I mean, certainly all of them had puppy nipping issues, like all of them wanted to nip, but this guy nipped probably harder than any of my other tollers have. Like he definitely, nothing soft-mouthed about him. And you can see it when he tugs. He wants that toy. He's like, he's got a great thrash to him. I'm so excited. Like, it's really cool that I don't have to really teach this puppy how to tug. I just have to, maintain
just hang on for your dear life.
Exactly. And maintain that it's a really fun game. So I've been bringing his toys out with me on the property. I had a toy tucked in the back of my pants every time I went into town with him, just so that I had something we could do a little play, right? Yeah, you can focus on me for a few seconds, even though there's lots of interesting things going on here, and then we would work our little outs with him. I could work, basically he's just building skills. He's building understanding of what I'm asking for. He's already starting to anticipate when I say out before I can get the cookie on his nose. He's already starting to spit the toy out, which is fabulous. So I can harness all that tenacity that he's got to tug, but have good control of it. And he's going to be 10 weeks tomorrow. He's only been home for a week and a couple of days.
He's still a baby. Yeah.
Like there's so much good learning.
Yeah, so much good learning.
Yeah, they're absolute sponges. If you sink your teeth in, not teeth literally, but sink in there and start training them. Like there's a lot of smartness in those puppies, and there's a lot of eagerness to work. So he's great. I can't even remember where I got off track talking about my puppy.
We were talking about what to bring when we go out training. So another thing I would bring is my long line. So I'm going to have
another thing about my puppy. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm going to have a leash on my dog, but I'm also going to pack a long line because there might be an opportunity to work on some long line recalls or maybe to do a stay somewhere, and I can get further away from my dog with the long line for safety.
Yeah. So picture this, like you're going to the beach because you love going to the beach with your dog, and it's the first time out in the spring that you've been to the beach because the weather's finally nice. You can go to the beach and just enjoy the beach and let your dog run in the sand and let your dog run in the water. Or you can do all that and pepper in some fun skills with them as well. So you can let them run in the water and then practice some response to name games with them. You can let them run on the sand and then work on quick little durations of tug and out, or work on a quick sit stay with them. Do make sure that sand as well is not too hot.
Right.
Sand
sand
really
can be sand. Yeah. So choose your beach wisely.
Choose your sand wisely.
Yes.
Choose your flip flops for your dogs wisely. Yes. It's always good to test that sand too. I find that sand gets super hot super quickly. So
and different beaches are different. Like the rocky shore of Newfoundland is much different than a beach in Myrtle Beach.
I'll have to take your word for it. But you'll be there soon, right?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm going to Cape Breton. I'm going to Cape Breton, and then my son is moving to Newfoundland, so I will be in Newfoundland soon.
Yeah, that's amazing. So fun. So but reminder lessons, they're so great. So you've got your long line, so you can throw in some long line recalls. Plus you can give your dog a little bit of freedom to enjoy the beach and then practice those skills. You've got toys, you've got lots of food, varieties of food, so that you can reinforce the things that you like.
Right. Yep.
And just throwing in some training skills when you're in this location will ensure that as the spring and summer progresses and goes on, you'll have better opportunities.
Exactly. Yes.
And you'll be able to give your you'll be able to give your dog more and more freedom in those scenarios, knowing that they've practiced listening skills.
Right. Yes.
It's so important. So those high value rewards, the refresher lessons, all of the things, they're just so crucial.
Do you have a new puppy and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed at the prospect of training the puppy? There is so much to learn. There's so much to teach them. But what order do you follow? What should I do first? Join our McCann Dogs Puppy Essentials program. It's an online training class, and it makes it easy for you to come into your training with a plan. Plus, you get the support of our instructors. You can ask questions. You can send in videos. We can custom coach and help you come up with a plan that best suits your family and get your puppy trained.
I think we'll take a little pause from our chat.
Questions.
And look inside the toolbox. Do you want to go first?
I will take a question.
All right, take a question.
Okay.
I did bring my glasses so that I can read these.
Okay, how do I phase out food rewards?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a big question.
It is a big question. It encompasses quite a bit.
Yeah.
So food rewards are rewards. It would be like saying, our employer saying, how do I phase out a paycheck for Christine and Shannon?
Well, do you want to phase out Christine and Shannon as well? Because if you're not paying us, we probably won't be coming to work much anymore.
So so food reward, you never need to phase out rewards because rewards are what keeps us all strong.
Yeah.
Nobody would go and pull slot machines anymore if the casino said, sorry, there's no more rewards, but come on in and keep playing.
Yeah, good point.
Yes.
I love that you use slot machines there too, because it really alludes to what we want to do with rewards, which is go to a random reinforcement schedule.
Yes.
You know, I've got this puppy right now who's getting rewarded for most things because I want to make sure that he learns them. I've got Ned who gets rewarded for almost nothing because he's an old guy. Well, he's not old, he's 7, but he knows his stuff well enough that it's automatic at this point, right? So every so often, you know, when we headed out on the trails again and it was spring-like weather, I stuck a little hunk of cheese in my pocket and I looked for opportunities because I knew that the bunnies were going to be out and about in abundance on my property. There are hundreds of them. They're everywhere you turn. And they're hares, actually. I think they're a little bit different than your average bunny. They've got longer legs and they move quick, like crazy fast.
Right, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like I think the tortoise and the hare, this is the story, you know?
Right, yeah.
This is the story. So that I could practice recalls and I could practice rewarding when the opportunity came up. The pup is going to get tons and tons more rewards at this point than Ned ever would. But having said that, I also have other rewards that I rely on in my life. It's not just food. So food is one thing. Food is one thing that's valuable to the dog. But as you get to know your dogs more, you can figure out what else is valuable for them. Right now with the pup, I'm also doing little fun grass games with him just to see if he's interested in chasing grass. So then now I have this way of entertaining him if I don't have food, right? Ned gets butt scratches all the time when he does good things and he loves his butt scratches. You know, if it's winter time, I'll pick up a snowball and throw it for him.
Yeah.
If I have nothing, I might turn and run in the opposite direction. Chase is a great reward for a dog.
Right.
It doesn't always have to be food.
It doesn't have to be food.
You know,
no. Well, even Honda being deaf now, I don't have my voice to praise him anymore. But I used to when I praised him when he was younger, we'd often clap our hands. So I'd clap, woohoo, what a good boy, hooray for you.
Yeah.
And he recognizes my clap motion. And it's very funny now because he'll do something good and I'll clap my hands and I know he can't hear it, but you see his eyes light up. He's like, oh, I recognize what that motion is. It's praise for me. So
sweetheart.
So yeah, and he'll get all wiggly and soft when I clap my hands. So I'm so glad that I have that as a reward for him now that he's lost his hearing. Perhaps the question was more meant not food reward, but like dangling a treat by the dog's nose. They maybe meant that, but we do need to. The food goes from a lure to the promise of food coming.
Yes.
So the dog has a belief system. The dog learns that Christine does not need to have a treat in my hand. I still eventually am going to get a reward. Yeah. It's like Marty doesn't have to hold a dollar bill over our head as we're working
to get us to come to work. You're right.
We have a belief system that Marty will put that money in our bank account.
I like the way you put that.
Right.
It's just a belief system.
Right.
If the belief system fails, right.
Well,
yes. No, and you know what? That's so true. And it's like I was just talking about with the puppy, where I've gone from that lure into the sit to now I'm going to go to a signal into the sit that looks the same. That's the thing. I don't want to go from this picture to something entirely different and expect that my dog's going to understand it. I need to do slow weaning.
Right.
So I've gone from this lure. Now I'm just going to take the food out of my hand. My hand is going to look identical. So literally if I had pinched fingers and moved it a quarter of an inch left with food in it, that's exactly what I'm going to do without food in it as well. That quarter of an inch to the left, once I get the position, yes tells my dog that he's right, and then the food comes from elsewhere. So I'm still paying off at that point. And then I might go to, actually my next step after that is going to be to add a command so that I can associate the word. So that would look like a little separation in timing. It would basically be sit, then I'm going to present my hand and signal, or down, then I'm going to present my hand to signal. A big mistake that a lot of times people make is they do the signal and the verbal at the same time.
Yes.
And then what happens with our dogs is they're so adept at body language. That's the first thing they're going to focus on. That's the cue they're going to take. And they're going to miss that word entirely.
Yes.
So it's so important that it's verbal first, brief pause, then present your hand and show the signal.
Right.
And that really is a huge difference in how well-trained a dog becomes in just that tiny, tiny little step, is making sure that you have a good, clear sit, then present your hand and signal. And we cannot emphasize more how important that step is. And then once you get to the point where everything's all together, your dog starts to anticipate on the verbal. That's why it comes first. So I say sit. Before I can get my hand there, my dog starts to sit. I'm going to make sure that I say yes and really jackpot that effort on his part. But now I'm at the point, once he's anticipating on the verbal, he's sitting on the verbal, now I'm at the point where I can choose whether or not I reward that with food.
Right.
You know, and once he knows the behavior and I'm just working on building reliability, I'm going to pick my battles. So, of course, if I'm in my kitchen and I ask him to sit in my kitchen, I'm probably not feeding that anytime soon. But if I'm out at the vet clinic and it's a busy vet clinic waiting room and I ask my dog to sit and he does, I'm probably going to feed in that situation because I need to build the value for doing what I want in a scenario where he definitely wants to do something different than what I want. There's no question in my head that his first instinct is saying, I want to go see all those puppies. I want to go visit the people. I want to go see the vet tech who's smiling at me from over the counter. Or I want to go chew on the carpet.
Or I want to leave.
Or I want to leave.
I don't want a vaccination. I want out of here.
Exactly. So I'm going to make sure that I look critically at the environment. How hard is this for my dog? How much do I need to build value for this behavior for my dog in this scenario? Like, I do not want to say sitting is valuable in the kitchen, but anywhere else is not valuable. You can do your own thing because you're excited about that dog or that person. I want to make sure that my dog learns it is rewarding for me to do it.
Yes.
Even when I'd rather do something else.
Right.
And that really is the key to it. So yeah, good point. We definitely have our ways of weaning off of the food, and we definitely ensure that they're not reliant on having that food for life.
Right.
Following a good obedience program is going to give you the steps that you need.
Yes.
When you go into it just thinking, okay, I'm going to show with food and then the food's going to disappear and I'm going to expect the same behavior, that's when you get yourself in trouble. It really is a step-by-step.
Because people often misuse food as a bribe as well. So that's why an obedience class teaches you not to use food as a bribe.
Absolutely. And that bribe comes because we skip steps and then we don't get the behavior and we go, hey, you didn't sit when I asked you to sit. And then we get the cookie back out because we don't know what else to do.
Yes.
And then the dog goes, oh, I just have to wait for better. I just have to hold out. And you pull out the food. If they miss the idea that the behavior is valuable in and of itself and it might be rewarded regardless, then you're going to set yourself up for that dependence on food for sure. Okay, here we go. How do I train anything in the city? We don't have large spaces or fields to train. So, you know, I honestly, like, whatever your situation is.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. Yes.
That's what your dog needs to get used to. So, I mean, if you are in the city and it's a concrete jungle, you know, if you live beside Swanee in downtown Hamilton, or if you live in New York City where there's not a lot of grass unless you're close to Central Park, you know, if you live in Toronto, like, these areas are concrete jungles.
They are, yes.
You need to train where you are. You know, you need to find an area that's safe, of course. Most of our sidewalks are probably pretty decent. You know, find a side street, or I will drive places.
Yes,
I don't just train on my property.
That's what I drive to the park.
Yeah, I drive to places. Like this weekend, I drove into town and hung out at the local stores, you know, hung out at the Sobeys and the Canadian Tire and did work there. Training is training. And the environment that you live in is the environment that your dog usually is going to need to listen in.
Yes.
So get out there and train in that space. You know, sometimes it is hard. You won't be able to do long line recalls, for example, if you are only training on a busy city street and there's lots of traffic.
You'll have to work on them short recalls, and then you're going to have to look for places. I find sometimes in the city there's alleyways that you can probably move into and practice. Well, you don't want to move into it, but practice. Or parking lots. Like, look for times when it's quiet. You know, maybe have another person there to help you so they can watch for cars and Yeah, and work with your dog in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And recognize that, you know, you might have some limitations in your training. Training a long line recall in the middle of a busy city center is going to be a hard thing. So let's work really hard on your loose lead walking.
Right.
So that you can walk places that now there's a green space that I can walk to or drive to, or, you know, just recognize that this is the life your dog's going to live. This is where they're going to need to listen to you. So let's do our training right here.
Yes.
Right here. And sometimes it's hard in the beginning stages because it might be busier than what you really want it to be for a young pup. But it is what it is. And sometimes that piece is going to be messy. Nothing is going to negate the need for your dog to listen in that space. So
yes, I know
roll up your sleeves, get it done.
I think I can think of a few of our instructors too who have lived in apartments with puppies, and they're extremely well trained, their dogs. So they
absolutely.
never use the environment as an excuse. It's you utilize what you have.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're up. Ooh. Ooh. Ooh.
Until I'm getting old, I have the sound effects going. Uh-oh. I don't even know if I know what this is.
Oh.
What is the 80-20 rule of dog training?
Oh, I
don't know what that means.
I think that's like 80% success to 20% failure rate.
I'm going to let you fill this one then, because I don't quite understand the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, I think it's a good principle. I personally would want better than 80%. In terms of a finished product.
So it means your dog should be doing something 80% right before you move on?
I think it's more about getting it right 80% of the time.
Okay.
So about 80% of the time. So I personally just deal with what I am dealing with in front of me. And if I'm not happy with the expectation, if they're not meeting the expectation, we train harder.
Right, exactly. You know? And I might find I'm training and he's doing great. But then suddenly I'm training and there's a bird and he can't function by that bird. I'm not gonna put that in the 20. I'm gonna say, you know what?
Yeah,
there's a distraction that's a problem. I gotta train here too. Yeah. So I don't think there's no hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
There's no hard and fast rule. It's do what you think. Like I find I'll often say use common sense and think through things, and things aren't always black and white.
Absolutely. Well, and if you consider too what is the importance of the skill. If I'm teaching my dog how to roll over, I could care less if he only scores 80%. Right. I could care less if he only scores 50%. We're just teaching it for fun. If I'm teaching a recall, if he only scores 80%, that leaves 20% as a failure rate, which a failure on a recall could be a devastating event.
Yes.
So that's not in my opinion. I'm going for as close to 100% as I can get, as close to near perfection as I can possibly get.
Right. Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. 80-20 or whatever the numbers are, have high expectations because our dogs are so capable of rising to them. And if you're finding that that's not the case with what you're doing, maybe it's time to talk to somebody who can get those results.
Right.
And build your dog's ability and build your training ability too. Right. Build your training chops. I certainly would not have gotten to be a great dog trainer. And that sounded arrogant.
You are a good dog trainer. You are a great dog trainer, Shannon.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I certainly wouldn't have gotten there, even in 25 years, if I had just muddled through on my own and never learned elsewhere and never asked questions and never failed, never made mistakes.
We've all made mistakes. Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. And we're very good though at realizing, okay, this is going wrong. I need to stop it right now. Yeah. And I need to think back and do something different.
Exactly.
So rather than just keep doing it over and over and over again. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that really is where you get to when you become a good dog trainer, is you realize that it's not personal. When your dogs make mistakes, it's not personal. You need to look critically at their skills and be honest with yourself. This is not where I'd like it to be. I need to train harder on that. Right. I need to incentivize my puppy to really want to do that thing. How do I do that? And this is where your community around you can be so helpful for ideas, because if somebody's been there before and they've been successful, like all of my tollers up to this point, I've had to build tug drive. I've had to build drive for toys. It's not been natural. I shouldn't say that. Their drive for toys has been natural, but their drive to interact with the toys with me has not necessarily been natural.
Right. Yes.
So I have had to build those skills with 4 tollers. And you know what? I'm pretty good at that at this point. I was expecting with this puppy to go into it with my game all planned and like, all right,
it was a good surprise.
Yeah, let's do it. And he came out of the box with it, which is great.
Yes. And we get students who will say, my last substitute breed, any breeds, my last golden retriever didn't do this, or my last golden retriever did this. And it's like, well, this is a different dog. It doesn't matter. It's the same breed. It's a different dog. You can't, I think people forget that they have to teach puppies again.
Yeah. And you have to deal with individual personalities when doing that teaching. So sometimes you go into a situation thinking like, I got my game all down. I'm ready for this next puppy or this next challenge or whatever it is. And then the challenge presented is completely different. You have to go back to the drawing board.
It's like with children. It's like, my one child, did this, but my next child may do something completely different. And same with our dogs. So just because you've had 3 German Shepherds doesn't mean your 4th German Shepherd is going to be like your last 3.
Precisely. Precisely. Okay. My dog is not interested in food. How do I deal with this? That's another great question. So a dog who is not food motivated in general, there could be some things going on that are bigger than the food itself. There could be a health issue there.
Right.
There could be an overfeeding issue there.
Yes, if a dog's not hungry,
absolutely,
because they're getting too much kibble. Yes.
Yeah. So I actually I wrote a blog post several years ago now called "Is My Dog Fat and How Did That Happen?" Because this is something that we often will have to talk to our students about, is their dogs being a little bit overweight, especially when we get into sports programs, and it can be a really touchy subject.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of funny in a way, because you would think that if somebody came at you and said, "Oh, you're getting a little chunky," you'd probably be offended.
Right.
But you wouldn't think that if somebody said it about your dog or your cat, that it would be offensive.
Right. But if someone said it about your child, you would be,
yes.
Like it almost insinuates that you have let this get out of control. Like you're a bad parent. What are you doing? Yes.
Yeah, and that's not the intention.
Right.
Because there's so many other things, right? There's other people in the family that are feeding the dog.
Oh, yes, that's the worst, yes.
Things like the bag recommendations.
Yes.
Often those are way too disproportionate.
Much. Yes.
Way too much. So consider that. So basically, the bag recommendations are meant to give your dog 100% of their daily nutritional intake for that day. And as much as that would be nice if we all met 100% of our daily nutritional intake, it's not reasonable. It's not realistic.
Right.
I don't measure any of my values of what I eat in a day. And like,
exactly,
I'm still here and I'm still alive.
And dog food companies want to sell dog food too.
That is a fact. Yes, that is actually their mandate.
Right. Yes. So make feed tons. Buy another bag.
Yeah. No, seriously though, like that number is often very inflated.
Yes.
So and dogs are individuals too. Just like you and I might eat. You probably eat.
I eat a ton
of candy in a day,
food.
and I eat no candy. But we are very different sizes. Even though we're similar ages, like there's a lot of similarities between us.
Right.
Our metabolisms are different.
How much candy have I already eaten today?
You have eaten a lot of candy. Yeah, and I haven't had any candy. I've been healthy. I ate 3 eggs, and I'm drinking a delicious buble.
And I had a cinnamon raisin bagel, and I've had at least, I bet, 8 pieces of candy that are in the office.
See, this is so funny. But truly, our metabolisms are different. If that was my diet, I'm sure I would be like a really, really big person, like much, much bigger than I am if I ate nothing but candy. But that's just the way it goes, right? I'm going to look at one dog and I'm going to say, okay, you need this much food. And even though the bag says this dog over here needs the exact same amount of food, this dog's going to put on the weight when I do. So go by look and feel, look up some of the things like the healthy hug test and things like that.
Right.
Get a feel for what your dog feels like when they're at a healthy weight. And that could very well be your answer in terms of food motivation. A dog who is oversatiated, in most cases, is not going to continue to stuff themselves.
Right.
I mean, there's exceptions, of course.
Yep.
Your average lab has no stop.
Right, yes. That's how they got to be the size they are in the first place. Yes.
Exactly. Your average lab is what I call a walking stomach. So my Reggie, I called a walking stomach his whole life. If I fed that dog as much as he wanted to eat, oh my gosh, he would have weighed a lot. Like some dogs just have that capacity, but the overwhelming majority of them, once they're satiated, they're not going to be that interested in food.
Yes.
So think about how much you're feeding in a day. Think about using some of those meal rations too. Like my puppy right now, first thing in the morning when he's just woken up and it's time for breakfast, he's a madman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, he is all over it. Like
Right,
I
yeah.
have no doubt that in that moment, I could go out, I could add in distractions, I could make things really tough, and he would still pay attention to that food. But by midway through the day or by evening, I have to think about a little bit harder what I'm offering him in terms of the food, because he might be like, you know what, the kibble's not that exciting.
Right.
So I want to plan things strategically. I don't want him to rehearse smelling something out of my hand and going, no, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to rehearse that behavior. So I'm very cautious that when I know that he's going to be, you know, fairly interested in the environment, I'm going right to the chicken or the cheese. I'm not even trying the kibble first.
Right.
Unless it's a really quiet time, we're sitting under that tree in the shade, nice and relaxed, then I know chances are I'm going to have his attention with the kibble. But if we're running, I'm going to make sure that I have chicken. When I went into town, I made sure that I had chicken and those little bits of cheese. I didn't even try the kibble because I didn't want a chance that in that environment, he was so infatuated with everything going on that he would turn his nose up at the kibble. And I would end up rehearsing that feeling on his part of him, of me offering him food and him saying, no, don't want it.
Right.
So, you know, right away.
We don't want that to
No, right away I'm going in with this understanding that the environment is going to likely trump my kibble. So I need something more exciting. I either need a toy, which he's madman for, which is great, or I need something that's a little bit more exciting.
Right. Yes.
I also will, when I'm working with food, I will make sure that I pair other things in there as well, so that my voice becomes powerful. Right. My touch becomes powerful. And that allows me to also wean away from the food. So if I have an interaction with the puppy where I've just, you know, backed away and done pop, 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 which is something I'm just working on right now, just to build up his recall and just to build up the idea that running towards me is a wonderful thing. That won't be his eventual recall command, but right now it's just the action itself that we're practicing. So as he's running towards me, I make sure that I'm praising him. And then when he gets to me, I let him take some time actually nibbling the food. I don't just give him the chunk of chicken. I let him nibble the chicken out of my hand. Right. And as that's happening, I'm petting him and I'm telling him he's wonderful. And I can tell that he's already starting to enjoy the petting action itself because it's being paired with the food, being paired with that good thing. So then I will have this other option for reward if he's not feeling super hungry at some point or if he's not overly food motivated. So lots of things that you can do with a pup that's lacking in food motivation. It's just finding what really trips their trigger. Yes. And to do that, you need to get to know them a little bit, which means you need to work with them. You need to spend time with them. And once you realize, oh, you know what? He wasn't really that into the food, but he really loved chasing the back of my pants. You know, I had these long pants on and he was chasing my pants.
Yeah, I found with my Saluki, she had no interest in eating, and she was thin to begin with, and was quite thin, and
they're sight hound,
very very aloof with people. Didn't really care about praise and patting. Just a very independent dog, and I had to really work to change her in her thoughts.
Okay.
So I had to, and by the end, Cowboy loved to be patted and praised. She loved to get treats. So I took a dog that was very cat-like and just had to think and work through it and experiment with different things.
Perfect. Are there a couple of things that you found that really worked in terms of inciting her food drive?
One of them was randomizing her meals.
Okay.
So she never knew when she was going to be fed.
Gotcha.
So that kind of made her like, oh, like, you know, most of the time we're like, okay, I feed the dog at 7 a.m. and 5 p.m.
Yeah.
But with Cowboy, because she just didn't eat, I randomized her meals, which really changed up the game for her.
Yeah, it turned on her hunger.
Right. Yes. And I found for training, beef heart.
Okay.
Was
so very high value for her.
Very high value. I used a lot of toys on strings because sighthounds love to chase. Yeah. So me holding a toy was like, boring, but tie that toy on a 6-foot string and run away with it through the grass. That really
fishing for dogs.
Right. That really excited her. So I had to really, and then everything came together.
Yeah.
No problem at all. She went back on a normal feeding schedule. She loved to eat. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I had to do some real thinking with her and experimenting.
Fabulous. And those are the dogs that make us better dog trainers moving forward, because you get that experience, right? Oh, this is different than what I was expecting.
Right.
Okay, let's work through it. Oh, look at that. Nothing's insurmountable.
Right. Yeah.
Huh,
and
imagine
if I remember bringing Cowboy out, okay, we're going to do some training. Like, you have to be trained. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's, not an option. You must be trained in life.
Yep.
And I would, offer her a treat, and she's like, I don't want it. No, thank you. And I'm like, well, you're going to have to go and sit in your crate then, because if I just said, well, okay, then she would have ran off and, chased rabbits, dug up the garden, pulled up grass. And she would have said, this is way better than being trained. But instead, I controlled her emotions and I put her inside. And she's like, oh, maybe I do want to get trained by Christine.
Yeah.
And then it came along that, I do enjoy this training. And she loved to be trained. And that was special time. So even though at the moment, some people go, Christine, that was mean to put her in a crate. Like, let her go out and look at the grass.
You know what? It's like it's like a kid, right? When you go, okay, this is the time where you need to be focused. This is what you get to do right now. And then we can do all the other stuff later. But right now I need you to do this thing. And they go, no, I'm not going to. All right, well, go sit in your room then, and you can do nothing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Back before all the
all
the devices and whatnot.
Right.
But I remember as a child when I'd get grounded to my room, like that was a big punishment because it meant that I couldn't play with my toys. Like I basically just had to sit there in my room, and it was boring.
Right.
And then if I was watching out the window as my sister was playing with her friends on the lawn while I'm stuck in my room. There's some serious FOMO, right? Some serious fear of missing out. And our dogs do have something very similar.
Right.
Very similar. So you know what? You don't want to do this? That's fine. You can go and spend 10 more minutes in your crate, and then we'll try again in a few minutes, and we'll see if you're more into it at that point. No, still not into it? All right, no problem. And if you have multiple dogs, you can play that whole psychology off them as well. Play with the other dog in the same room while they're crated and bored and missing out.
Right, yeah.
Good tactic. And I don't think you're mean at all.
No. Well, I can't. You know what I did this Friday? I was like, I had a big pile of laundry, and I should have folded it, but it's like, I don't want to fold it. I just want to do fun stuff. So,
did anybody make you sit in a room looking at the pile of laundry? Sadly?
No. Well, I went away for the weekend and just waved to my pile of laundry. Honda and I left the pile of laundry.
Did you get home and it was folded?
No, I got home and it was still there. So I came home last night.
That actually happened to me as well this weekend, but
I came home and it's like, why didn't I do it on Friday? Now I got to spend Sunday night folding laundry. But you know what? I didn't do it. For that Monday night, I didn't do it. So now, you know what I'm doing tonight? Folding laundry.
So do you think that next time this scenario comes around and you do laundry on the Friday, do you think that you'll have learned your lesson?
I don't know. Probably not.
Okay, everybody vote in the comments below. Do you think Swanee will have learned her lesson and will fold her laundry in time next time? Or do you think that this failure is doomed to repeat itself with Swanee going, I still have laundry to fold?
Tonight I'm going to go home and I'm going to fold faster than Superman on laundry day.
I wish so badly that I could somehow arrange for somebody to go and fold your laundry for you so that you could get home and it would just be like this lovely pile of folded laundry.
Right, yes. Well, you'll know this week if I show up to work in wrinkly clothes every day. It's like, she never folded her laundry.
I can't say that I don't think I would notice. And that's not a commentary on you.
Well,
that's not to say that you're usually wrinkly. That's because I'm not a fashionista.
Well, it's not
I
like
think it would stick out at all for
our
me.
outfits aren't made out of linen or anything.
No,
they're
true.
Cotton. Yes,
it's true. It's pretty wash and wear, thank goodness.
Yes, because we have dogs. Yeah. Yeah, there's some days I go home completely covered in dog goobers.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And all the hair. Right. All the hair you can imagine.
Yeah.
All the fur.
Or strategically placed holes that a dog has tugged on my shirt.
So were you wearing the shirt when that happened? Do you just take it off at that point? Like, what do you do? How is your dog tugging on your shirt? This is the tug toy I have. See, you're never without rewards.
You're never. Atari loved to tug, and I would often use my shirt sleeve or my pants or a shoelace as a reward for her. So yes, sometimes. Yeah, I was definitely wearing the clothes sometimes when they were tugging.
See, that is the really nice thing about having a well-trained dog is that you can let them be a little bit naughty. You can let them have their heads in certain situations, knowing that you can control it, right? Knowing that you, like, I can let my dog tug on the leash because I can get it back when I'm done. I can say out and he knows to drop it. And he knows not to touch it until I've given him permission, etc. It would be the same thing, I'm sure.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I had no problem at all saying, here, you can tug on my shirt sleeve because she would only do it when she was asked.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Right.
Perfect. And there's a reward. You always have.
I had a Malinois puppy tug on the back of my wedding hat, my wedding veil. I had a wedding hat. It was like a beautiful hat. I don't know how to describe it.
Okay.
Not like a cowboy hat, but sort of like a.
I would have laughed if you were like, I didn't picture you wearing a cowboy hat to your wedding. Lots of people do, I'm sure.
Right, yeah. But it was a beautiful hat, and then it had a big veil, and the veil was like a train behind me.
Okay.
And then I was supposed to walk up the aisle with over my head, and then, the big reveal. There's Christine.
Oh, it's funny.
Right, but we forgot, of course, to put it over my head. So it just trailed. It just trailed behind me. But in the house when I was getting ready, I had a 9-week-old Malinois puppy.
Oh my gosh.
And she grabbed on the back of it.
I bet she did.
And I remember like, because it's all bobby pinned in your hair. And I remember my mom like, and my mom and my aunt like trying to wrestle this Malinois puppy off. All dog training kind of went out the window into a panic. It wasn't wait, someone go get a treat and do the drop it and trade. It was more just like, get this puppy off this wedding hat veil. But it all turned out well.
The day's canceled.
Right.
The day's canceled.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, that was, yeah. That was a funny day.
Puppies are a going concern.
I think my dad also stepped on it too. I think it's just my dad and I were about to walk up the aisle. My dad stepped on the back. So as I took a step forward, it was like,
Yeah, those things were dangerous.
I know.
My gosh, it's amazing there weren't more veil incidents.
Right. Yes. Yes. I think at that point I remember to put it over my face, but
oh man,
that was I don't know. That's a bit of a blur. That was a long time ago.
It would be a long time ago now, but puppies are a going concern. Anything long and tuggable,
right?
But yeah, like so. If you're moving and your puppy is excited about your pajama legs, or your pajama bottoms and they're chasing them, that's good info for you. You know what? They'll probably like chasing a toy.
Right.
So let's stop this behavior here because it's not appropriate for you to be chasing and chewing on the back of my pant legs because then, inevitably, especially me, I'm going to end up on the floor with a broken nose. Like this is just how it's going to go for me. But I can channel that drive, right? I know that this puppy has that chase drive.
Right.
I don't want to squash it in the puppy. I want my puppy to enjoy chasing and playing and tugging. Now I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm going to harness that. We talk about channeling drives. This is how you do it. Right. You identify something that is a drive in the puppy, instead of just saying, oh, this is a bad puppy. He wants to chew on my pajama legs and I just don't know what to do about it. And I'm going to discipline that and then be done with it and hope he never does it again.
The puppy has just shown me what the reward is.
Exactly.
Yes.
Let that light bulb go on.
Yep.
If your puppy likes chasing a ball, let that light bulb go on for you and figure out how to use that to your advantage, right? You can use a tug toy as a reward for all sorts of great skills that your dog's going to do. So I know my dog loves my puppy loves chasing my pajama bottoms. I'm going to turn that into a game where I take a tug toy, replace those pajama bottoms, of course, with something that is appropriate to tug on and chew, whatever that may be in your laws, in your house, in your rules, and teach the puppy how to tug with you. Teach the puppy some rules surrounding that tug. So we tug when I say get it. We stop tugging when I say out. And when I hold the toy and you're there and the toy's there, you don't get to get it until I say get it. And that's about it. Now you have this fabulous ability to say, let's game on.
Right.
Let's party. Let's have a good time.
Right.
And, maybe that's the reward for the dog that is not overly food motivated, right? You call their name, they turn. Yes, you pull out your toy, you run away and let them chase you with the toy, just like they chase those pajama leg bottoms. You have a little, fun play with them. You work your out. You got your dog's focus.
Yep.
Now you ask them for something else again, then you reward that with the tug, right?
Like, and a handy tug toy we always have is our leash.
Yes.
Yep. Like I've taught all my dogs, tug on your leash, let go when I ask.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as long as always have it.
Yeah, as long as you have those control measures in place, you can utilize those things that you have at your disposal so well. So that's great for spring training too. One last thing that I just wanted to talk about when it comes to spring training is renewing their ability to be handled. I already have upped my grooming game with Ned so much since spring. We're on a pretty wet property, so he's muddy all the time. He spends a lot of time being toweled off. He spends a lot of time being dried off. He spends a lot of time being groomed and brushed out now. I mean, he always has, but now it's extreme. It's multiple times a day.
Right.
So if I had a dog that was a struggle with, every time I needed to take a burr out of his coat, if I couldn't just say, hey, buddy, come here, let me pull this out. If it was a big fight, and a tip with burrs. Every time I say burrs, I feel like I need to offer this tip because it is so much different. Remove the hair from the burr. Do not try to remove the burr from the hair.
Hair from the burr.
Hair from the burr, yeah. So grip the burr. You can even squish it. Like take a pair. If you have a bunch of burrs in your dog's coat, I would squish them. I would maybe take some pliers even and squish them in the coat so they break up a little bit. But basically what I do is I grip the burr and then I peel the hair out a little bit at a time versus trying to pull the whole burr out, which it just seats in more when you do that.
How about those little green stickers that stick in them?
Those ones I just kind of pull
Those
out.
are awful.
They are awful.
And you can get like 2 million on your dog in 1 second.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, Ned's rough. All of my tollers actually, that chest, but Ned's is very long. That chest hair, it's the first thing to pick them up. And of course they come out and they're just like a green speckled new creature.
Yeah. And
they're the worst. Frog are you?
They're the worst things. Yeah.
But making sure that your dog will be calm as you pick ticks off them. Oh my gosh, this time of year and fairly new in Ontario, of course, but it is what it is.
Right.
The ticks are out and about in abundance.
Slugs.
Oh, you know what? I get a ton of those being in the wetlands.
Right. Yep.
When Ned goes romping through the bush,
slugs,
he comes out and he'll have these big goobery things on his coat that leave slime.
Right.
And,
yes.
I think I'd rather pull a tick off.
Where I lived last had a wet yard, and it was in the city, but it still was quite wet. And Honda used to always get slugs stuck to him. Yeah.
Yuck. I've never experienced that. Even with all the field training I've done.
I've
never experienced it.
Yeah, they're gross. And sometimes they'll fall off in the house and I'll be like, what is that dried up thing? That's, it's a dried up slug. Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to look for those. Maybe I've seen those and I haven't even experienced it yet.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when you get a dog, you're in for some surprises.
Yeah. Truly pick your breeds wisely.
Right.
If you are a fastidious person, I like things really clean and tidy, but I don't mind doing the work to get there. I don't panic if things get dirty and then need to be recleaned. But if I was a person that, could not stand hair in my house, specks of dirt anywhere, like the Toller would not be the right breed for me. They are muckers to the extreme. They love the muck. I love the muck too, luckily. Yeah. But I usually take my mucky stuff off outside. But Tollers would not be a good breed for the fastidious, person that doesn't like any sort of dirt in the house. They're going to have lots of dirt,
And even like Honda, if I let his coat grow out, he'll have the biggest, fuzziest feet.
Yeah.
And even though they're adorable, fuzzy feet bring in lots of dirt and lots of grossness.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Pick your breeds wisely for sure. If you like things to be just so perfect, consider something that's going to tiptoe around the puddles rather than jump right in them.
One thing that was nice, my Saluki cowboy was a smooth coated. There's two types of, there's feathered and smooth. She was smooth, so she had a coat kind of like a greyhound or a Doberman. And she was also cream, pretty much white. So if there was a tick on her, you could spot it 20 miles away. It's like, oh, there's a black dot on you. And I could just pull it right off.
And
whereas
they wouldn't have anywhere to hide, right?
No.
Unless they went right in her ears or between her toes or something.
She was so tall, it took forever to get up there.
Oh, I bet.
I'd spotted them all the time. But I find like Atari, my Sheltie, it's like, they're, or you'd find the same with your Tollers, or I can't imagine like a black, like a Bouvier or something like that.
That would be
a black
even
doodle.
Worse.
Yes.
Yeah. I used to take the forced air dryer to Ned to find the ticks back when he was on a preventative that was no longer doing the job. And it was a chemical preventative as well. We've moved to a different preventative now and it is doing the job. So I don't need to check quite as thoroughly because anything that gets down to his skin is going to be dead.
You know those bubbles that kids play bubble soccer in? They drop a big bubble over their head. That's what we need for our dogs. We need a big bubble. They go inside, just their feet stick out and they run along the ground, keeping all the ticks off them.
That is hilarious.
Right, yes.
I have actually had my fair share of ticks on me now as well. I used to say like, at least none's ever bitten me. I've had 3 now. I've had 3 that were actually attached. That sounded really, really lame when I said the actual number, but honestly, even 1 is too much.
Right, yes.
It's just too much. Oh my
and you can tell that we're in an area where ticks are exploding and it's relatively new. Shannon and I are old enough to remember when there was no ticks in Southern Ontario. Yeah.
Honestly, I would say right up until about I would say 10 years ago, it would be novel
Right,
if you
yes.
found a tick on your dog.
Exactly,
And even with
yep.
lots of field training, and I'm always out in the bush,
Yep.
like it would be a story to tell. Now, if I told you the story of every tick, we'd never get out of the room.
I'd like to hear the story of every tick. Yes. But yeah, no, you're absolutely
This
right.
one's Timmy the tick.
Yes. Yeah, I remember it was when I had Cowboy, I started seeing ticks.
Yeah.
So Cowboy was born in 2004.
Okay.
So, and it wasn't right away. Maybe when Cowboy was like 6 or something like that. So maybe around 2010, I
Yeah.
started going, there's a lot of ticks around all of a sudden. Yeah.
Where are they all coming from?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So practice your handling skills so that you can pick those ticks off.
Right.
You can groom those coats. You can pull out the burrs. You can do anything that you
Right,
need
yes.
to do with your dog to keep them healthy and safe
Yes.
and wise.
Mhm.
Wise, especially wise.
I don't want a dog that's wiser than me though.
Is that possible? No. That was so wrong. So wrong. Swanee, your wisdom is grand. It would fill at least this entire house that we're in, not just this room.
Thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
On that note, everybody marvel at Swanee's wisdom. And aside from that, this has been a fun episode. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy training.
Bye-bye.
The McCann Dogs podcast is brought to you by McCann Professional Dog Trainers. We help dog owners to have a well-behaved, four-legged family member. Please give us a call at 905-659-1888 or visit us at mccanndogs.com. Happy training!